Grigori Rasputin, the holy man, mystic, faith healer, and mad monk who somehow wormed his way into the Russian royal family. Rasputin's legend is filled with outlandish tales, everything from hypnotic healing powers to surviving poison and bullets. But are all these tales true? Much of what we know about Rasputin is either rumor or myth. No one is denying that he was indeed a mysterious figure born in Siberia. But the reality of his life is far more interesting than the sensational stories. So, in this video, we'll explore Rasputin's true story, from his humble peasant roots, his rise at the imperial court, to his violent death. Rasputin was born in 1869 to a poor peasant family in Pokrovskoye, Siberia. He grew up illiterate on a farm and was one of 8 children. Everything was fine with Rasputin until a religious experience as a young man changed his life. In his late teens, he joined the Klisti. The Klisti was a secretive Russian Christian sect of individuals who were known for rituals like flogging themselves and others. They believed that one could achieve closeness to God through ecstatic, sometimes extreme rituals. Rasputin embraced their ideas. He preached a doctrine of holy passionlessness. Rasputin insisted you couldn't truly repent unless you had sinned first. And not just sinning, you must sin deeply enough to exhaust the sinful impulse. At 19, Rasputin married Praskovia Dubrovina and had several children. But married life didn't calm him down. By 1892, he decided to hit the road as a wandering holy man. He traveled through Russia, even going to Mount Athos in Greece and Jerusalem, living off alms. The thing is that Rasputin was a charismatic man. Along the way, he gathered a reputation as a healer. He started growing a fan base of believers. Peasants were also fans of him. To peasants and believers, he was a gifted man. But to others, he was just a dirty drunk who would sleep with anyone in sight. In any case, by the early 1900s, Rasputin was known as the holy man from nowhere. He might have been an obscure village monk forever, except that by 1903, Rasputin found himself in St. Petersburg, the gleaming capital of Imperial Russia, and immediately caught people's attention. By the time Rasputin reached St. Petersburg, Russian high society was already obsessed with mysticism. Aristocrats and clergy alike were dabbling in occultism and holy men. So when the unkempt Rasputin stumbled into town, a few prominent church figures took notice. He was introduced to Theophan, head of the St. Petersburg Theological Academy, and Bishop Hermogen of Saratov. These men found Rasputin fascinating. Despite his dirtiness, they saw a spark of charisma. One clergy even described him as a filthy, unkempt wanderer with brilliant eyes and allegedly extraordinary healing talents. The fact that Rasputin claimed no official title, he was never ordained as a monk, contrary to his nickname, made him stand out even more. In 1905, fate stepped in. Tsar Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra heard about this odd, holy peasant with healing powers and asked to meet him. The imperial couple was desperate. Their only son, Alexei, was a hemophiliac who bled uncontrollably from injuries. Doctors had been unable to cure him, and Alexandra was prone to mystical beliefs, so of course she wanted to see Rasputin. The Tsar's son Alexei's crisis began in 1908. The boy had severe bleeding, and the desperate Empress summoned Rasputin to the palace. According to accounts, Rasputin prayed and rubbed Alexei with oil, and, incredibly, the bleeding slowed. The royal doctors, who had been giving Alexei aspirin, a now historic medical mistake for a hemophiliac, stopped giving him the blood thinner medicine on Rasputin's advice. Within hours, Alexei began to improve. Was it a miracle? Modern historians think not. it's far more likely that Rasputin's real cure was psychological. He calmed the child, possibly with a bit of hypnosis, kept the Empress from panicking, and had the doctors change treatment. Hemophilia is sensitive to aspirin. Stopping the pills could alone explain why Alexei's bleeding subsided. In other words, Rasputin's fame was boosted by luck and simple medical sense, not magic. However, the Tsar and his wife believed Rasputin had saved their son. Afterward, Rasputin ominously warned them that the fate of the young heir and the Romanov dynasty was now tied to him. Whether he really foresaw events or was just telling them to keep him close, that prophecy or threat cemented his place at court. From that point on, Rasputin was indispensable to Alexandra. He began attending palace dinners and private meetings. In public, he always acted like a humble peasant, bowing, swearing off shoes and fancy titles. But behind closed doors, he was far more controversial. Once back in the outside world, Rasputin fell into old habits, drinking heavily and carousing with women. He even preached that touching him or being near him could purify one's soul, which led to rumors that he fathered illegitimate children everywhere he went. Mistresses were said to line up to sleep with him. After all, who wouldn't trust a holy man? Nicholas II was aware of the gossip and was furious. Some aides claimed Rasputin lived openly like a hedonist, even flashing his manhood to ladies. These tales, though, were probably exaggerated by Rasputin's enemies. Nonetheless, Prime Minister Pyotr Stolypin in 1911 delivered a dossier on Rasputin's misbehavior to the Tsar. Nicholas briefly exiled Rasputin from court, banning him from Petersburg. But Alexandra, fiercely loyal and convinced Rasputin was the key to Alexei's health, quietly had him brought back. Nicholas, frightened of upsetting his wife and endangering his son, relented. As the years passed, Rasputin's influence in the palace grew, though it was always informal. He never held any official office or title. But Alexandra valued his counsel, especially on spiritual and personal matters. When World War I broke out in 1914, Rasputin became even more entwined with the royal family. In 1915, Nicholas II decided to take personal command of Russia's armies on the Eastern Front, leaving Alexandra in charge of domestic affairs. This meant Rasputin was effectively one of the most powerful people in the country overnight. The Empress leaned on him daily for advice on appointing churchmen, ministers, and even decisions about the war. Rasputin reached the pinnacle of his power at the Russian court. Alexandra treated him almost like a royal advisor, appointing bishops and civil officials at his recommendation. Some historians say he even weighed in on military strategy, often to disastrous effect. To many Russian nobles and politicians, Rasputin seemed like a clown prince at court. The elite hated that this uneducated peasant could influence the Empress. With the country suffering terrible war losses, the press, newly freed from censorship, needed someone to blame. Who better than the sinister mystic whispering in the Empress's ear? The rumors became vicious. That he was sleeping with Alexandra and even her daughters, that he controlled ministers' decisions from afar, that he ran the government by proxy. In reality, those tales were wildly exaggerated. Rasputin's closest role was caring for the young Alexei. Beyond that, his influence was limited to spiritual matters. Modern scholars caution that he didn't literally rule the country. Nicholas still officially made the big decisions. Rasputin himself never asked for power or titles. Most of the puppet master talk came from conspirators and later mythmakers trying to explain Russia's decline. As Russia's situation deteriorated in 1916, Rasputin became a lightning rod for blame. By late 1916, a group of conservative aristocrats decided it was time to act. On the night of December 30th, 1916, Prince Felix Yusupov, a nephew of the Tsar's wife, right-wing politician Vladimir Purishkevich, and Grand Duke Dmitry, Nicholas's cousin, lured Rasputin to the Yusupov Palace on the Moika River in St. Petersburg. They offered him wine and cakes laced with cyanide. According to the legend, the poison should have killed him, but Rasputin simply fell unconscious for a bit. When he revived, Yusupov panicked and pulled out a revolver. He shot Rasputin once in the side. But Rasputin didn't die immediately. He staggered upstairs and out into the courtyard. Purishkevich ran out and fired a second shot into his back. Then together they bundled Rasputin's bleeding body, wrapped it, and threw it into the icy Neva River, expecting the cold to finish him off. By the early hours of December 30th, 1916, Rasputin was dead. The aftermath was swift. Tsarina Alexandra was heartbroken and furious, lashing out against anyone who doubted Rasputin's holiness. Yet she had only a few weeks left with the crown. In March 1917, the February Revolution toppled the Romanovs altogether. As one historian notes, Rasputin's killing merely strengthened Alexandra's resolve to uphold the principle of autocracy. But a few weeks later, the whole imperial regime was swept away. And with that, we've come to the end of Rasputin's story. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, and subscribe